Welcome to my channel. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and like. In the repair bay of Orion 7, starlight streamed through the massive viewport, casting faint streaks across the cold metal floor. Captain Ethan Caldwell, hands smeared with engine grease, his silver-gray tech armor worn and scuffed, wrestled with the malfunctioning power core of the warship Starlance. Sweat dripped down his brow, his breath heavy in the stifling air, mingling with the hum of ventilation systems and the whine of tools. Orion 7 was humanity's last outpost on the edge of the Galactic Alliance, a place where survival hung on skill and grit. Ethan had been at it for 6 grueling hours, his eyes stinging from the core's blue glow, but at last he tightened the final bolt, feeling the metal vibrate under his grip. He stepped back, admiring the now stable core, its low hum like the heartbeat of a colossal beast. "Done," he muttered, wiping his hands on a tattered rag, leaving black streaks. He took a deep breath, chest heaving, and glanced through the viewport. The galaxy stretched out, radiant but unforgiving, a reminder that Orion 7 was humanity's fragile flame in the vast cosmic dark. Ethan turned to check the data slate, fingers swiping across the screen to confirm the core's parameters. Starlance was the pride of the Earth Alliance, but also the most temperamental ship in the fleet. "You're one high-maintenance lady," he said to the ship, a faint grin tugging at his lips. As an engineer, Ethan loved this work, fixing, tinkering, keeping things alive. On Orion 7, where Vyran diplomats flaunted their biotech prowess, he took pride in being a hands-on man, not just a talker. But as he prepared to leave the bay, a soft voice cut through, delicate yet sharp, nearly drowned by the machinery's roar. "You're human, aren't you?" Ethan spun around, hand pausing on the slate. At the bay's threshold stood a Vyran girl, small and ethereal, like she'd stepped out of moonlight. Her silver shimmering skin gleamed, her large emerald eyes blazed, and her sleek black hair shone like the galaxy itself. By human standards she looked about 10, but with Vyrans, known for their biotech and elegance, age was a slippery concept. "Well, kid," he said, setting the slate down, his deep voice gentle, "you shouldn't be here. This place is dangerous." He knelt to meet her gaze, his armor clanking, and flashed a warm smile, though he wondered how a child slipped into a restricted zone. The girl tilted her head, eyes sparkling with curiosity. "I wanted to see a human ship," she said, her voice clear, carrying an odd confidence. "My father says humans do things differently. Rough, but strong." Ethan chuckled, the sound echoing in the bay, easing his fatigue. Her bluntness amused him. "Your father's got it right," he replied, standing and gesturing to Starlance behind him, its scarred hull proud and defiant. "We don't make things pretty like Vyrans, but they get the job done." The girl stepped forward, her small feet gliding across the floor. She stopped before the ship, craning her neck with awe. "You're different from the others," she said, her voice quieter, like sharing a secret. "You work with your hands. The others just talk." Ethan shrugged, a grin spreading across his grease-streaked face. "Someone's gotta keep the ships flying, right?" he said, pride lacing his tone. The girl nodded, her gaze solemn, as if he'd unveiled a universal truth. Then, with the earnestness only a child could muster, she declared, "When I grow up, I want to mind link with a human like you." Ethan froze, a jolt running through him. The mind link, a sacred Vyran ritual, merging minds and souls, deeper than any human vow. He studied her, searching for a hint of jest, but her emerald eyes shone with sincerity. He burst out laughing, the sound ringing out, dispelling his unease. "Oh, is that so?" he said, his tone teasing. "All right, kid. When you grow into a fine Vyran lady, I'll mind link with you. But you gotta promise not to drive me crazy first, deal?" Her face lit up, her smile bright as twin stars, illuminating the bay. "I'm Sylra," she said, her voice proud. "What's your name?" Ethan raised an eyebrow, feigning seriousness, then snapped a playful salute, hand to forehead. "Captain Ethan Caldwell, at your service," he replied, winking. "Sylra," she repeated, as if carving his name into her memory, her tone oddly certain. Suddenly a voice called from outside the bay, urgent and metallic, unmistakably Vyran. Sylra! Where are you? Sylra turned, eyes wide with a flicker of panic. I have to go, she said quickly, glancing back at Ethan. But I'll find you when I'm grown. I promise! Before he could respond, she darted off, her small feet gliding through the threshold like a breeze, leaving a faint silver shimmer in her wake. Ethan stood there, shaking his head, a smile lingering. Kids are the same across the galaxy, he muttered, picking up the slate and returning to Starlance. Childish promises, fleeting dreams, they passed like starlight. But as he ran a final check on the core, a faint hiss caught his ear. He frowned, crouching down. A small wire sparked with an eerie green glow, unlike any human or Vyran tech. No way, he murmured, reaching for it, only to jerk back as a flash stung his hand. This wasn't a glitch. Someone had tampered with it. Ethan stood, eyes scanning the bay, unease coiling in his gut. Orion 7 was a beacon of hope, but it hid secrets. He logged an urgent note on the slate, then glanced through the viewport, where the galaxy glittered. Little Sylra, he whispered, his smile fading. Hope our next meeting's less trouble. But he knew fate, like the stars, had a way of steering things into the unexpected. 15 years flashed by like a cosmic blink. Orion 7, once a remote human outpost, was now a bustling hub of trade and diplomacy in the Galactic Alliance, where humans and Vyrans forged a fragile partnership. Ethan Caldwell, now 45, commanded the station, his brown hair flecked with silver, his body still lean and strong thanks to training and advanced medicine. He cherished quiet mornings in the command bay, where the blue glow of data slates and the hum of machinery offered a sense of control. Today, he sat there, fingers skimming reports on Starlance, the hybrid human-Vyran warship. Still behaving, he muttered, a faint smile crossing his lips as the parameters checked out. An engineer before a commander, Ethan took pride in keeping things running, from warships to the Alliance's hopes, while diplomats bickered in the council chambers. But the calm shattered with a soft voice, liquid and metallic, like silver bells. Captain Caldwell? Ethan turned, and his heart skipped a beat. At the bay's threshold stood a Vyran woman, breathtakingly beautiful. Her silver shimmering skin gleamed, her long black hair shone like the galaxy, and her emerald eyes locked onto him with unshakable confidence. She wore a form-fitting suit, its lines pulsing with energy, accentuating her graceful form. Those eyes, deep, familiar, stirred memories. Do we know each other? He asked, setting the slate down, his voice cautious, as if the answer might upend everything. She stepped forward, each movement a dance. You promised to mind-link with me when I grew up, she said, a mischievous smile flickering across her lips. I'm grown, and I'm here to hold you to it. Ethan froze, his mind reeling. Memories flared, the repair bay, the Vyran girl with sparkling eyes, the joking promise of a mind-link. Sylra? He rasped, voice hoarse. Her smile blazed, like a star igniting. You remember? Good. He ran a hand through his hair, grasping for an explanation. Sylra, that was a joke, he said, faltering. I didn't think you'd hold on to it. She stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. On my world, she cut in, her voice soft but firm. A promise binds souls. Especially one made to a child. She paused, a breath away, her scent, mint and molten metal, enveloping him. I've studied humans, your language, customs, even how you brew that bitter coffee. I'm not here for a joke. I'm here because I believe in it. Ethan stepped back, his back brushing the console, feeling cornered. That's some dedication, he said, striving for calm despite his racing pulse. But you have to understand, I wasn't serious. Sylra tilted her head, eyes glinting. I understand human humor, she replied, her voice velvet. But I also understand their honor. A commander like you, who keeps the stars alight, surely values his word, yes? Her words struck his pride, leaving him speechless, searching for a response that wouldn't escalate things. Sylra wasn't just a girl from years ago, she was a woman with purpose, her presence a strange mix of allure and danger. Ethan cleared his throat, about to speak, when the bay door slid open. Lieutenant Harper stepped in, eyes widening at the scene. "Commander," Harper said, voice hesitant, "the Vyran Council requests your presence immediately." Something about a mind-link pledge. Ethan closed his eyes, exhaling, the floor seeming to drop beneath him. "Of course," he muttered. Sylra smiled, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "Shall we go, my promised one?" she said, her tone playful. She glided out, her movements leaving a faint silver shimmer. Ethan turned to Harper, who stared baffled. "Don't ask," Ethan said, shrugging, then followed Sylra, stepping into a game whose rules he didn't yet grasp. Orion 7's polished corridors gleamed, the eyes of crew and Vyran staff tracking them, whispers trailing in their wake. Sylra walked beside him, her presence a quiet flame. "You really studied my coffee?" he asked, trying to ease the tension. Sylra laughed, the sound like silver bells. "I tried brewing it," she replied, glancing at him. "It was horribly bitter." Ethan chuckled, the sound echoing, but it faded as they neared the council chamber. The massive door, etched with Vyran patterns, loomed, and a chill ran down his spine. A joke from 15 years ago had become the most complex diplomatic tangle he'd ever faced. Before entering, Ethan paused, looking at Sylra. "What do you really want from this?" he asked, his voice low, serious. She met his gaze, her eyes soft but resolute. "I want a future where humans and Vyrans are one," she said. "And I believe you're the one to build it with me." Her words silenced him, his heart stirring with an unfamiliar feeling, not fear, but curiosity. He nodded, and together they stepped inside, ready to face whatever lay ahead, knowing fate, like the stars, always guided things to the unexpected. The Vyran Council chamber on Orion 7 was a marvel, its transparent dome revealing the galaxy's radiant sprawl, as if the cosmos itself watched. Starlight reflected off the glowing stone floor, weaving patterns like rivers of light. 5 council members sat on elevated chairs, their elegant faces cool, their gem-like eyes studying Ethan Caldwell and Sylra as they entered. Ethan, in the Earth Alliance's formal uniform, felt the room's weight, each step echoing in the silence. Sylra, beside him, moved with natural grace, her silver shimmering skin gleaming, her long black hair flowing like the galaxy. Her gaze was confident, but Ethan caught a spark of mischief behind her poised exterior. High Commissioner Terran, an elder Vyran with silver metallic hair, spoke, his voice deep and sharp as a blade. "Captain Caldwell, we understand there's a delicate matter to discuss." Ethan cleared his throat, choosing his words like an engineer inspecting a ship's components. "High Commissioner," he said, his voice calm but firm. "There's been a misunderstanding. When Sylra was a child, I jokingly mentioned a mind link. It was just human banter, not a serious intent." He glanced at Sylra, hoping for support, but she only smiled, stepping forward with a grace that silenced the room. "A promise," she said, her voice soft yet cutting. "Spoken before me and acknowledged by the captain today when he recognized me." Ethan felt the stone floor tilt beneath him. She hadn't just remembered the joke, she turned it into a declaration, a challenge. The council members exchanged glances, and Ethan realized this was no simple conversation. Commissioner Lyra, a Vyran woman with eyes sharp as energy beams, leaned forward, her metallic hair glinting. "Captain," she said, her voice cool but not hostile, "you may not know that in our culture, a promise to a child is sacred, untainted by adult motives." Ethan felt cornered, like he was troubleshooting a fried power core with no tools. "With all due respect," he replied, keeping his tone steady. "On Earth, such promises are often expressions of affection, not binding commitments." He met Lyra's gaze, hoping his sincerity would resonate, but her eyes didn't waver. Terran nodded, his voice thoughtful. "Intriguing. But honor transcends cultures. A man in your position surely understands the weight of words." Ethan glanced at Sylra, her eyes blazing with confidence and something magnetic, as if she were playing a game he hadn't learned. Rejecting her outright wasn't an option. Not only would it offend Vyran culture, but the human-Vyran alliance, built on sweat and blood, could falter. He needed time, a way out that preserved everyone's dignity. Commissioner Kale, younger and more open-minded, spoke, his voice gentle but precise. Perhaps a middle ground is possible, Kale said, looking from Ethan to Sylra. The captain could honor the promise's spirit through a formal courtship period, to determine if they're truly compatible. Sylra nodded instantly, her smile flashing like a star. I find this acceptable, she said, her tone tinged with amusement, as if she'd anticipated the outcome. Ethan saw his chance to buy time, to avoid a diplomatic crisis. He took a deep breath, standing tall, and said, I'd be honored to court Lady Sylra per Vyran tradition. His voice was steady, but inwardly, he wondered what he'd just agreed to. Terran nodded, his expression softening, as if a threat had been defused. The courtship will last 3 star cycles, he declared. During this time, you'll engage in rituals and learn about each other. Lyra added, her gaze piercing Ethan. Afterward, either party may withdraw without dishonor, provided there's just cause. Ethan nodded, feeling he'd cleared a hurdle, but Lyra's look unsettled him, like she knew something he didn't. As they left the chamber, Sylra linked her arm with his, the contact sending a strange warmth through him. You handled that well, she said, her tone playful, like teasing an old friend. Though I know you're looking for an out. Ethan raised an eyebrow, a smile flickering. Am I that obvious? He asked, humor masking his tension. To me you are, she replied, squeezing his arm, her eyes gleaming. But don't worry. 3 cycles are enough for you to see what I already know. Ethan paused, curious. What's that? He asked, his voice low, almost wary of her answer. Sylra turned to him, her eyes holding the galaxy, deep and sincere. That we're bound by fate, she said, her voice soft but certain. Not just by a promise, but by what we can create together. Her words silenced him, his heart racing at her sincerity and allure. This was no longer a childish game. It was the start of something vast, perhaps bigger than him, or the Alliance. As they stepped into Orion 7's gleaming corridors, Ethan felt the crew's eyes and whispers trailing them. Sylra walked beside him, her presence a small flame, warm yet perilous. You know, he said, trying to regain ease. If you're set on this promise, at least learn to brew my coffee right. Sylra laughed, the sound like silver bells echoing. I'll try, she replied, glancing at him. But don't expect me to like that bitter taste. Ethan chuckled, but his smile faded as they moved from the chamber. Unease stirred within him. The council had agreed too quickly, and Lyra's gaze held something, a secret, a warning. He glanced at Sylra, her confidence unshaken, but he wondered if she knew more than she let on. Orion 7 was a place of hope, but also of intrigue, and Ethan sensed that the innocent promise from years ago had drawn him not just into a Vyran ritual, but into a larger game, where the stars were not just witnesses, but players. The first ritual night, the Dance of Starlight, unfolded in Orion 7's Grand Hall, its ceiling a shimmering replica of a star-filled galaxy. Hundreds of Vyrans gathered, their silver-shimmering skin glinting under luminescent lights, creating a surreal scene, as if the cosmos had convened to bear witness. Ethan Caldwell, in the Earth Alliance's formal uniform, felt out of place among the elegant crowd, their sleek Vyran armor and ornate garments highlighting his own simplicity. But his eyes locked on to Sylra as she appeared at the hall's far end. Her dress seemed woven from light itself, clinging to her like a living galaxy, her black hair adorned with glowing gems that twinkled like tiny stars. As she approached, the crowd parted, and their gazes met, the universe shrinking to that single moment, silencing the murmurs around them. Captain Caldwell, she greeted, her voice warm, meant for him alone, with a hint of mischief. You look exactly as I imagined. Ethan flashed a grin, taking her hand, feeling the coolness of her silver skin. You could have warned me about your status, he replied softly, humor masking his unease. Who are you in Vyran society, Sylra? She laughed, her emerald eyes sparkling, both alluring and enigmatic. If I told you, would it change anything? She asked, tilting her head. Maybe, he admitted, curiosity piqued by her confidence. Then I'm glad I didn't, she said, pulling him closer, her scent, mint-laced with molten metal, enveloping him, quickening his pulse. Tonight isn't about politics, Ethan. It's about the heart. Her words were gentle but sharp, a reminder that this ritual was no mere diplomatic formality, but a personal challenge. A chime rang out, clear as a call from the stars, and the crowd formed a circle around them, the ceiling's glow dimming to a solemn hush. High Commissioner Terran stepped forward, his robes shimmering like a meteor's trail, his voice echoing through the hall. Tonight, we witnessed the dance of starlight between Sylra Vyran, heir to the Bioforge Assembly, and Captain Ethan Caldwell of Earth. Ethan jolted, the floor seeming to shift beneath him. The Bioforge Assembly, the Vyran institution controlling advanced biotechnology, from medicine to genetic enhancement, was the backbone of their power. Sylra wasn't just a girl with a childhood promise, she was a key to her species' future. He glanced at her, but she only smiled, as if she'd anticipated his reaction. Terran gestured, and a platform of light materialized at the hall's center, radiating shimmering threads, vibrant and alive. The starlight will reflect your true intentions, Terran declared. Captain, speak first. Ethan hesitated, feeling the weight of hundreds of Vyran eyes and Sylra's upon him. He stepped forward, touching the light, startled as it coiled around his hand, glowing brighter, as if responding to his heartbeat. I wish to honor my promise, he said, his voice steady yet sincere, by entering this phase with openness and respect. I'll learn about her, share about humanity, and see if we can build something together. The light flared, bathing his face in warm gold, as if affirming him. The crowd murmured approval, and Ethan felt a flicker of relief, like he'd passed the test. Sylra stepped up, her hand grazing the light, which swirled into intricate patterns, like a dance of celestial bodies. I want to show Ethan Caldwell that our meeting was fated, she said, her voice soft but resolute. I'll prove my feelings aren't just a child's dream, but the desire of a heart that's chosen him as its partner. The light erupted, so brilliant Ethan squinted, the hall trembling with the crowd's awe. The starlight has spoken, Terran proclaimed, his voice resounding. Their intentions are pure. Let the courtship begin. Music swelled, a melody both gentle and profound, like the universe's song. Sylra took Ethan's hand, leading him to a quiet corner by a massive viewport overlooking the radiant galaxy. Does the starlight really detect lies? He asked, his voice low, still reeling from the moment. She laughed, the sound like silver bells, clear and captivating. It responds to emotion, she replied, brushing his chest insignia, her fingers gliding like a breeze. The stronger the feeling, the brighter it shines. Yours was quite intense. Ethan raised an eyebrow, catching her hand, surprised by his own boldness. Yours too, he said, his gaze locked on her emerald eyes. What do you want from this, Sylra? Truly? She looked at him, her gaze soft but unwavering, as if the galaxy spoke through her. I want a future where humans and Vyrans aren't just allies, but one, she said, her voice certain, brimming with passion. And I believe you're the one to build it with me. Her words silenced him, his heart stirring with an unfamiliar sensation, not just the bond of a childish promise, but a deeper pull, as if fate had drawn them together. He wanted to protest, to say this was just a ritual, but Sylra's gaze held him, making him wonder if she was right about destiny. As they stood, gazing at the galaxy, Ethan noticed a figure in the hall's corner, Commissioner Lyra, her sharp eyes watching them, not with approval but with suspicion. Unease coiled in his gut. The dance of starlight was a beginning, but also a test, and Ethan sensed that Sylra, as heir to the Bioforge Assembly, carried secrets that could reshape not just their future, but the alliances. You know, he said, trying to reclaim ease, if you're set on building a future, you'd better learn to stomach my coffee. Sylra laughed, squeezing his hand. I'll try, she replied, but don't expect me to like it. Ethan chuckled, but his smile faded. Under the starlight, he knew this ritual wasn't just a dance, it was the first step in a perilous journey, where hearts and honor would be tested. After the dance of starlight, Ethan and Sylra spent days together, immersed in Vyran rituals of captivating formality. In Orion 7's biogardens, where glowing flora lit up like lanterns. They shared their worlds. Ethan spoke of Earth's wheat fields under open skies. Sylra described spiritual rites where minds merged like starlight. Ethan was drawn to her wit and grace, the way she laughed when he mangled Vyran words, or how her eyes sparkled explaining biotech. Yet he kept a wall up, an invisible barrier born of diplomatic caution. Each step closer to Sylra was a step into dangerous territory, where a misstep could unravel the human-Vyran alliance. He was an engineer, a commander, not a diplomat, and he knew his limits. One morning in the command bay, Ethan reviewed reports on a data slate, its blue glow lighting his face. The hum of machinery felt like an old friend. He was checking Starlant's specs, the Alliance's most advanced warship, a human-Vyran collaboration, when an explosion rocked Orion 7, shaking the slate in his hands. Red alerts flashed, and Lieutenant Harper's voice crackled through the calm, urgent and strained. "Commander, Starlance is under attack. Engine systems sabotaged, 3 crew injured." Ethan sprinted down the corridor, heart pounding, his boots hammering the metal floor. Starlance wasn't just a ship, it was the Alliance's symbol, and an attack on it was a blow to fragile peace. Reaching the hangar, Ethan was stunned to find Sylra already there, standing at a console, fingers flying across the screen. Her silver skin shimmered in the dim light, her emerald eyes focused. "Sylra? What are you doing here?" he asked, voice torn between surprise and suspicion. She looked up, her gaze grave. "The Bioforge Assembly oversees all ships in our space," she replied, sharp but calm. A holographic image materialized, showing a strange device attached to Starlant's power core, its pulsing circuits unlike human or Vyran tech. "This wasn't an accident," she said, pointing at it. "Someone targeted the human-designed components." Ethan's jaw tightened, fists clenching. "To make it look like our fault," he growled, mind racing. "Or to fracture the Alliance." Sylra nodded, her eyes darkening. "There are factions opposing our cooperation," she said, voice low, as if afraid of being overheard. "Especially our bond." Ethan opened his mouth to press further, but an urgent alert from the Vyran Council blared through the comms. "Captain Caldwell, Lady Sylra, report to the Council chamber immediately. There are allegations of treason." Ethan and Sylra exchanged a glance, tension crackling between them like static. "Treason?" he muttered, unease surging. They raced through the corridors, alarms echoing, the crew's eyes trailing them with curiosity and fear. In the council chamber, Commissioner Vyran awaited, a Vyran with eyes cold as steel, his robes glinting like frost. "Captain Caldwell," Vyran said, voice sharp as a blade, "an encrypted signal was sent from your sector to Starlance before the sabotage. And Lady Sylra, your medical records show unusual bioalterations." Sylra paled, her hand brushing her wrist, where a Vyran medical implant glowed faintly. Ethan frowned, stepping forward, voice hard. "Bioalterations? What's that supposed to mean?" Vyran activated a display, showing complex medical data, with erratic energy signatures. "She's had intimate exposure to another species, specifically humans," Vyran said, his tone loaded with implication. "This violates our spiritual laws." The chamber buzzed with whispers, rippling like waves. Ethan stepped up, eyes blazing. "That's personal," he roared, "and irrelevant to sabotage. These accusations are baseless." Vyran's lips curled, his gaze glinting with malice. "Are they? Or is this a human plot to access our biotechnology?" Sylra regained her composure, stepping forward, her voice sharp as a silver blade. "These claims are unfounded," she said, locking eyes with Vyran. "If there's a saboteur, look among those opposing the Alliance, like the Stellar Purity." Ethan turned to her, voice low. "Stellar Purity?" she whispered, her gaze flicking to Vyran as if warning him. "A Vyran extremist group. They believe cooperation with other species, especially humans, taints our legacy." High Commissioner Terran raised a hand, demanding silence, his face stern. "We will investigate," he declared. "But for safety, Lady Sylra will be under medical observation until the truth is clear." Ethan started to protest, But Sylra gripped his hand, her eyes pleading for calm. Her touch was cold but steady, a reminder they were being watched. As they left the chamber, Orion 7's gleaming corridors felt suffocating. Sylra pulled him into a shadowed alcove, her voice an urgent whisper. Something's wrong. Vyran knows too much about my records. Someone's breached the system. Ethan nodded, unease rising like a tide. The encrypted signal wasn't human, he said, mind racing. I checked the logs. It doesn't match our protocols. Sylra met his gaze, her eyes glinting with worry but resolve. Then whoever's behind this doesn't just want to wreck Starlance, she said. They want to destroy the Alliance, and us. Ethan squeezed her hand, feeling his own pulse. This wasn't just sabotage, it was a deeper conspiracy, with invisible threads tightening around them. He looked through the viewport, where the galaxy glittered, but now the starlight seemed to hide shadows. We need to find who's behind this, he said, voice low but firm. And fast. Sylra nodded, her eyes a small flame, ready for any challenge. But as they moved on, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that Vyran, or someone bigger, was watching their every step, waiting for a misstep. That night, Ethan slipped into Orion 7's medical wing, where Sylra was confined. Under the dim glow of equipment, she sat on a bed, her silver skin shimmering like moonlight, her emerald eyes brightening at his sight. Ethan, she whispered, voice a mix of surprise and worry. You shouldn't be here. He checked the door, his sharp gaze sweeping the dark corridor. I'm not leaving you alone, he replied, voice low but resolute. You were right, someone's orchestrating this. I traced the encrypted signal. It's not human or Vyran. It's Zorathian. Sylra frowned, her black hair shimmering faintly. Zorathian? The ancient race from the galaxy's edge? They don't deal with outsiders. Ethan nodded, his eyes darkening. Exactly. Someone hired Zorathian mercenaries to sabotage Starlance and frame us. This isn't random. Sylra grabbed his hand, her touch cold but firm, her eyes blazing with resolve. The Bioforge Assembly has a covert database in the asteroid belt, she said, voice hushed, as if fearing eavesdroppers. If we find who breached my records, we can trace the mastermind. Ethan nodded, but before he could respond, an explosion shook the hangar, the floor quaking. He yanked Sylra from the bed, dodging an energy beam that tore through the door, shredding metal. A towering figure in Zorathian armor stormed in, its glowing red eyes searing, its voice a thunderous growl. Hand over the Vyran, human! Ethan shoved Sylra behind him, drawing his pulse pistol, eyes blazing. Try it. The fight was brief but brutal. Ethan used his engineering know-how, retreating and triggering a nearby panel to overload the lighting system. The room's lights strobed wildly, disorienting the Zorathian, its glowing eyes faltering. Ethan aimed true, firing a pulse shot into the mercenary's chest, dropping it. But Sylra tugged his arm, voice urgent. More are coming! They bolted through the corridors, alarms blaring across Orion 7, red lights pulsing like a frantic heartbeat. Heavy Zorathian footsteps echoed behind, joined by the whine of energy weapons. Ethan led Sylra through narrow passages, his mind racing to reach the hangar. At the hangar, Ethan stopped, breath ragged. Starlance stood proud but surrounded by a squad of Zorathian warriors, their weapons glinting in the dim light. They want to destroy the ship, Sylra said, her voice trembling but eyes steady. And our alliance. Ethan gripped her hand, feeling her pulse through her silver skin. Not while I'm breathing, he growled, eyes fierce. Get to the ship! They climbed aboard Starlance via an emergency hatch, Ethan diving into the pilot's seat, fingers dancing over the controls to initiate launch. Sylra sat beside him, eyes focused, already accessing the ship's systems. As Starlance rumbled and lifted from Orion 7, a Zorathian fighter wing appeared on the screen, firing radiant energy beams through the dark void. Ethan piloted with masterful skill, dodging attacks, the ship shuddering as he pulled off daring spins. But he knew they couldn't hold out long. Starlance was powerful, but not built for an uneven dogfight. Sylra, he called, voice taut. Can you hack their systems? She nodded, fingers flying over the console with astonishing speed, the screen's glow lighting her face. I'll try, she replied, calm despite the stakes. But Ethan, there's something I haven't told you. He glanced at her, heart pounding, unease rising. What? He asked, hands still on the controls. Sylra took a deep breath, her eyes glistening, but her voice held firm. My medical records, they show I carry some of your bioenergy. Not from physical intimacy. From a partial mind link during the ritual. Ethan froze, mind reeling. A mind link? He muttered, eyes glued to the screen as he dodged another beam. I didn't feel anything. Sylra lowered her gaze, voice trembling. Because I hid it. I was afraid you'd reject it. But it's made me stronger, and made us a target. Before Ethan could process, an explosion rocked Starlance, the console flashing warnings. The screen showed a massive Zorathian ship blocking their path, its hull gleaming like deadly metal, weapons locked on them. Ethan gritted his teeth, mind racing. This wasn't a small strike, it was a calculated war. Sylra, he said, voice low and sharp. If you're linked to me, can you use it to boost the systems? She looked up, eyes blazing, as if his words had sparked hope. I can try, she replied, placing her hands on the console, eyes closing. A silver glow pulsed from her hands, flowing into the ship's systems, and Starlance roared, its engines surging with newfound power. Hold on! Ethan shouted, slamming the controls, the ship weaving through energy beams, racing toward the asteroid belt where the Bioforge's database lay hidden. But as they neared, another encrypted signal flashed on the screen, this time bearing the Stellar Purity's signature. Ethan glanced at Sylra, her eyes darkening. They're working with the Zorathians, she whispered, voice laced with dread. This isn't just sabotage. They want war. Ethan squeezed her hand, feeling the universe arrayed against them. They won't get it, he growled, eyes burning with resolve. You and I will find the truth. Starlance plunged into the asteroid belt, massive rocks drifting past like specters, the Zorathian fighters still in pursuit. Ethan knew this fight wasn't just for Starlance or the Alliance, it was for the bond between him and Sylra, a fated thread tested by the shadows lurking beneath the starlight. Starlance shuddered as the Zorathian mothership's tractor beam locked on, an invisible force clamping the hull like a steel trap. Ethan Caldwell gripped the controls, sweat beading on his brow, his mind racing for an escape. The screen flashed warnings, showing the Zorathian fighter wing encircling them, their weapons glow blazing like deadly stars. Sylra, he called, voice taut. If you've mind-linked with me, what can we do with it? Sylra bit her lip, fingers flying over the console, the blue glow illuminating her silver-shimmering face. The mind link enhances coordination, she replied, her voice trembling but resolute. If you allow it, I can sync our minds, making your piloting more precise. Ethan hesitated, the idea of someone breaching his mind unnerving, like standing before a door to the unknown. But as an energy beam struck Starlance, rocking the ship, he nodded, eyes fierce. Do it! Sylra touched his temple, her cool fingers sending a warm surge of energy through him. Suddenly he felt her, not just her thoughts, but her emotions, a strange power coursing down his spine. His vision sharpened, reflexes lightning fast. He weaved Starlance through a gauntlet of asteroids, dodging attacks with uncanny precision, firing a salvo of pulse blasts that crippled two smaller Zorathian ships. But the mothership loomed ahead, unyielding, a metallic monster in the dark. We need to reach the Bioforge facility, Sylra said, voice strained, eyes glued to the screen. It has an experimental weapon, a biopulse that can disable Zorathian ships. Ethan nodded, punching coordinates into the system, his hands moving like part of the machine. As Starlance hurtled through the asteroid belt, a hidden space station emerged, glinting like a jewel in the shadows, its energy panels glowing faintly. But as they approached, a cold voice crackled through the comms, cutting through the engine's roar. Captain Caldwell, Lady Sylra, surrender. You cannot win. Ethan froze, recognizing the voice instantly, Commissioner Vyran. Vyran? He growled, fists clenching. You're behind this? The stellar purity will not tolerate this alliance's corruption. Vyran replied, his voice sharp as a blade. The Zorathians are our allies, and they'll ensure humanity never touches our technology. Sylra grabbed Ethan's hand, her eyes blazing like silver flames. He's lying, she whispered, voice quaking with anger. Zorathians don't ally with anyone. They're using him. Ethan nodded, mind racing. If we get the biopulse, we can turn this around, he said, voice low but firm. Starlance landed on the station in a jarring touchdown, shaking as it hit the deck. But as the hatch opened, a squad of Zorathian warriors awaited, their armor glinting, red eyes glowing like power cores. Battle erupted instantly. Ethan fought with honed skill, blending combat with technical know-how. He triggered a nearby conduit, sparking a burst that forced one Zorathian back, then fired a precise pulse shot into another's chest. Sylra, at his side, hacked the station's systems, fingers dancing over a portable console, its glow lighting her face. I'm almost at the weapons vault, she shouted as they raced through corridors, Zorathian footsteps thundering behind. Reaching the vault, Sylra activated the biopulse, a silver radiance erupting, rippling through the station. The Zorathian squad collapsed, their armor short-circuiting, red eyes dimming. But before they could celebrate, Vyran appeared at the corridor's end, holding a glowing device, shimmering like a deadly gem. You think you've won? He sneered, eyes glinting with malice. This will erase your mind link, Sylra. And your mind with it. Ethan lunged, but Vyran fired an energy beam, striking his shoulder, sending him crashing to the floor, pain flaring like fire. Sylra screamed, her body radiating a silver burst, a wave of energy shoving Vyran back, staggering him. Ethan, wake up! She cried, kneeling beside him, voice desperate. In that moment, through the mind link, Ethan felt her, not just her strength, but her deep devotion, a bond beyond words. Gritting his teeth, he rose, grabbed his pistol, and fired a precise shot into Vyran's chest, knocking him out, the device clattering to the floor, shattering. But checking the vault, Ethan saw the biopulse was damaged in the fight, its circuits charred. Sylra stood beside him, breathing heavily, eyes worried. No weapon left, she whispered. Just Starlance. Ethan nodded, eyes burning with resolve. Then we'll use her, he said, taking her hand, pulling her back to the ship. As they launched, leaving the station, the screen showed the Zorathian mothership still waiting, its weapons locked on. But a new signal appeared, a friendly code from Orion 7. Captain Caldwell. Lieutenant Harper's voice crackled. We've got your signal. Alliance fleets inbound. Ethan glanced at Sylra, a faint smile crossing his lips. Looks like we've still got a shot, he said. But Sylra gripped his hand, eyes darkening. Ethan, if we survive, I need to tell you the truth, she whispered. The mind link, it's not just boosting us. It's changed me. And I think it's changing you. Ethan met her gaze, heart pounding, a new door opening in his mind. But before he could respond, the Zorathian mothership unleashed a barrage, shaking Starlance. He tightened his grip on the controls, eyes fierce. Keep that secret until we take them down, he growled. You and me, we're finishing this. Starlance dove into battle, weaving through attacks with perfect synergy between Ethan and Sylra, their minds melded through the link. But the mothership remained untouchable, and Ethan knew, even with Alliance backup, this would be the toughest fight of his life. Under the starlight he felt Sylra, not just an ally, but part of him, and wondered if fate, as she'd said, had truly bound them to face this darkness. Starlance hung in space, facing the colossal Zorathian mothership, its hull gleaming like an invincible fortress. Energy beams from the Zorathian fighters flickered around, ready to tear Starlance apart. Ethan Caldwell gripped the controls, breath heavy, but his engineer's mind knew brute force wouldn't win this fight. Sylra, beside him, her emerald eyes blazing with resolve, spoke, her voice sharp yet calm. We need to negotiate, Ethan. The Zorathians aren't the real enemy. They're being manipulated. Ethan frowned, hands still on the controls. Manipulated? By who? Before Sylra could answer, Starlance's main screen flickered, and a holographic figure filled the cockpit with cold light. A massive Zorathian entity appeared, its body like liquid metal, rippling like a wave, its red eyes glowing like power cores. Its voice boomed, deep and resonant as the universe itself. "Human and Vyran, you've meddled in our plans. The stellar purity were mere pawns. We seek Vyran biotechnology to revive our race." Ethan stared, stunned, his gaze locked on the entity. "Revive?" he muttered, voice thick with doubt. "You're the galaxy's oldest species." The entity tilted its head, its surface shimmering. "And we are dying," it replied, its tone carrying an odd sorrow. "Vyran technology could save us, but we reject contamination by humans." Sylra stepped forward, her silver skin glinting, her voice steady, a flame unquenched. "Contamination is the future, not a threat," she said, meeting the entity's gaze. "Let us prove it." The cockpit fell silent, save for Starlant's engine hum. The Zorathian studied them, then nodded, a slow, deliberate gesture. "A challenge," it declared. "Send your champions to our ship. Prove the worth of your union, and we'll halt our attack." Ethan glanced at Sylra, sensing the danger, a trap, but their only chance. "We go together," he said, voice low but firm. Sylra nodded, her eyes shining with absolute trust. Refusal meant annihilation. As Starlance docked with the Zorathian mothership, Ethan and Sylra entered an energy labyrinth, its walls shimmering like rivers of light, ever shifting. The air was heavy, thick with metal and ozone, as if the space itself tested them. Through the mind link, their minds merged, sensing each other vividly. Each trial pushed them to their limits, puzzles demanding perfect coordination, energy traps testing their bodies, and mental illusions stirring deep fears. Ethan led, using combat skills to clear obstacles, while Sylra decoded energy patterns with her biotech expertise. They moved as one, his logic bolstering her intuition, her strength amplifying his courage. Clearing the final trial, a door opened to the ship's core, a vast chamber where the Zorathian entity awaited, its body a miniature galaxy. But before they could claim victory, a figure emerged from the shadows, Commissioner Vyran, revived by Zorathian tech, his eyes glinting with malice. He held a glowing device, pulsing with deadly energy. "You think you've won?" Vyran sneered, his voice echoing. "This will obliterate this ship and your alliance." Ethan lunged, but Vyran activated the device, a red radiance surging like a shockwave. Sylra screamed, shoving Ethan aside, shielding him with her body. She collapsed, the silver glow of her skin fading, her breath shallow. Ethan knelt beside her, holding her tight, heart shattering. "Sylra, don't leave me!" he roared, voice breaking. She smiled faintly, her fingers brushing his cheek, cold but loving. "My promise was real," she whispered, eyes glistening. Through the mind link, Ethan felt all of her deep love, her sacrifice, her fierce belief in their future. Gritting his teeth, he channeled his strength through the link, keeping her conscious. Simultaneously, he dove for Vyran's device, fingers flying over its circuits, his engineering skill a weapon. With Sylra's fading mental support, he disabled it at the last second, the red glow dying, leaving the chamber silent. The Zorathian entity watched, its surface softening, as if weighing their actions. "You've proven the value of your union," it said, voice resounding. "Your courage and sacrifice transcend species." It extended a liquid metal arm, channeling bioenergy into Sylra, her skin regaining its glow, her breathing steadying. Ethan held her, heart pounding, not just for her survival, but for a new, profound feeling, love, not born of a childish promise, but because she was his fated partner. Returning to Starlance, Sylra, still weak, met his gaze, eyes bright. "You saved me," she whispered. Ethan shook his head, clasping her hand, feeling warmth return to her silver skin. "We saved each other," he replied, voice low but certain. But as Starlance headed for Orion 7, a new encrypted signal flashed on the screen, bearing the stellar purity's mark. "Vyran was just a puppet," Sylra said, voice tense. "Someone bigger is behind this." Ethan nodded, eyes fierce. "We'll find them," he said, squeezing her hand. together. Under the starlight, Starlance glided through space, carrying two souls bound not just by fate, but by a love stronger than the cosmos. Yet Ethan knew the darkness lingered, and the true war was only beginning. 6 months after the trials aboard the Zorathian mothership, Orion 7 shone brighter than ever, no longer just an outpost but a beacon of hope among the stars. The Grand Hall, once host to the Dance of Starlight, was packed with representatives of 3 species: humans in crisp uniforms, Vyrans with shimmering silver skin, and Zorathians, their liquid metal bodies rippling like living waves. The transparent dome revealed the galaxy's radiant sprawl, starlight reflecting off the glowing stone floor, weaving patterns like rivers of light. Ethan Caldwell stood at the center, in a gleaming Earth Alliance uniform, his chest insignia catching the light like a vow. Beside him was Sylra Vyran, heir to the Bioforge Assembly, in a unique dress blending human and Vyran styles, soft silk hugging her form, accented with glowing energy circuits like jewels. They held hands, gazes locked, as if the universe held only them. The new council, High Commissioner Terran of the Vyrans, a Zorathian entity named Clythar, and Lieutenant Harper, now promoted as humanity's representative, sat on elevated chairs, watching with solemnity. Terran rose, his robes shimmering like a meteor's trail, his voice resounding. Today, we witness not just the birth of an alliance between humans, Vyrans, and Zorathians, but the union of 2 souls who overcame trials to bring us here. The crowd hushed, eyes on Ethan and Sylra, who turned a childish promise into a guiding flame for the galaxy. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling Sylra's pulse through her hand, a bond now not just mental but profound, forged through danger and sacrifice. He stepped forward, drawing from his pocket an energy band, a delicate Vyran device, glinting like starlight, crafted to symbolize a mind link. He met Sylra's eyes, heart pounding, not for the crowd or the Alliance's weight, but for her, the woman who'd changed him forever. With this mind link, he said, voice low but clear, echoing through the hall, I keep my promise, not for a quip in a repair bay, but for the love we've built through trials and starlight. He placed the band on her wrist, its light spreading, coiling around her arm like a miniature galaxy. The crowd murmured approval, but Ethan saw only Sylra, her smile brighter than any star. Sylra responded, stepping closer, her emerald eyes glistening, but her voice steady, carrying the strength of an air and the tenderness of a loving heart. With this link, she said, drawing a matching band from her dress, placing it on Ethan's wrist. I claim you as mine, not for a child's dream, but for 2 souls who found each other among the stars. His band flared, its light melding with hers, a silver and gold radiance so brilliant the hall held its breath. As they leaned in, their lips meeting in a kiss, the crowd erupted in cheers, applause echoing like waves. Through the vast viewport, a Zorathian ship glided past, its hull gleaming, a symbol of a new future, an alliance built not just on treaties, but on trust and sacrifice. As they stepped from the podium, Ethan and Sylra stood by the viewport, gazing at the galaxy. You know, Ethan said, voice tinged with humor, I never thought a joke in a repair bay would lead to this. Sylra laughed, her silver bells sound leaning into his shoulder. I knew, she replied, eyes sparkling. From the moment I saw you, grease-stained, I knew our fate. Ethan squeezed her hand, feeling the warmth of her silver skin. Then you owe me a proper cup of coffee, he teased, making her laugh, the sound a light banishing darkness. But as they stood, a faint encrypted signal appeared on Ethan's personal console, bearing the stellar purity's mark. He glanced at Sylra, her eyes darkening, but she nodded, ready for any challenge. They haven't given up, she whispered. But we're stronger. Ethan nodded, eyes fierce. We've faced Zorathians, Vyran, the galaxy itself, he said, voice low but firm. If they want war, they'll see how strong this alliance is. The ceremony continued with speeches from Terran and Clythar, emphasizing multi-species cooperation. Clythar, its voice a cosmic echo, shared how Vyran biotechnology, paired with human resilience, had ushered a new era for Zorathians, not through conquest, but sharing. Harper, for humanity, spoke of Ethan's courage, a mechanic turned symbol of hope. But Ethan and Sylra, standing together, knew this alliance was more than politics. It was a burning promise, forged in moments they faced death, saved each other, and loved beyond species. As night fell, Orion 7 glowed with starlight and festival lights. Ethan and Sylra stood on a balcony, gazing at the vast cosmos. "What do you see for the future?" he asked, voice low, eyes tracing a distant star. Sylra leaned against his chest, her energy band glinting. "A future without division," she replied, voice soft but hopeful. "Where humans, Vyrans, Zorathians, all of us, are one." Ethan smiled, holding her closer. "Then we'll build it," he said. "Step by step, star by star." Under the starlight they stood, two souls bound by fate, love, and a promise that transcended time and space. Their alliance was no mere pact. It was an undying flame, lighting the path for a unified galaxy, where darkness had no place to hide.